All right, folks, it's about 9:02. I want to welcome everybody for coming out for the Department of Revenue's latest and greatest webinar. Jennifer Hicks is actually going to be presenting on this. Just some housekeeping stuff. This will be recorded. We will put this on our website just because of how the Zoom client works. I kind of asked that we have like a 24-hour turnaround on that, just because it takes a while for the Zoom company to get us the files, and then we have to put them on our website. So I try to have about a 24-hour turnaround. So if you get called away from a customer or whatever is going on and you miss part of this presentation, it'll probably be on our website by tomorrow, I hope, but not this afternoon. Anyway, if you could open up the bottom rail of your screen right now and open up the Q&A, that is how you're going to be asking any questions of our presenters today on the material that we're bringing forward. The chat is actually disabled because it is a webinar and not a meeting, and so we ask you to use the Q&A. We do have panelists that are on standby waiting to answer any questions. So as we see those come up, you may hear, Jennifer may answer it, or one of our panelists may answer it as well. Other than that, I think you're pretty good. Jennifer Hicks.
All right. Thank you, Jason. And thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. My name is Jennifer Hicks, like he mentioned. I have been with Department of Revenue for 10 years this month. Pretty excited about that. And I work in the withholding unit. The withholding unit is responsible for handling about 75,000 employers within the state of Montana and outside the state of Montana. And we roughly handle, I believe it's about $1.6 billion, I think is what it was at the latest. So we are a very high volume, very busy unit. There's 11 of us currently. I work with a great group of people. We are here to answer any questions that you have. So you'll have some contact information at the end of the slides. Please feel free to reach out to us anytime. Especially this time of year, we're extremely busy, as you all know, because the filing due date is coming up pretty quickly here at the end of the month. The reason behind the webinars is I do a couple presentations throughout the year. I usually am a part of the ABC clinics. So if any of you that are on the line are actually people who have seen me there, that's part of what I do as well. The other people that should be online are probably brand new clients to the state of Montana. So we're going to go through today and answer questions and give you a brief overview of your filing requirements with the state of Montana. And answer any questions along the way that you might have. My unit manager, Donna, is on as well. She'll be the one that's going to probably answer most of your questions. If she feels free or feels it should be something I can address to the whole group during my presentation, I'll do it at that time. But again, feel free to ask questions as we go. So withholding changes for tax year 2024. We did lower our withholding tax tables again for tax year 2024 in October. This was due to Senate Bill 399 and our tax simplification for income taxes. So those have been lowered. Another change for us is Senate Bill 303. This has increased our W-2 penalties. Previously, they were $5 a W-2 with a minimum of $50. They are now $50 a W-2 with a minimum of $250. So what that means is the first 5 in the door that are late are going to be an automatic $250, and then it's an additional $50 above that for each additional one. Again, the due date on W-2s is January 31st, the same due date as our MW-3. The other change in that bill was our mineral royalty 1099s have increased to $150 per 1099, but their minimum stayed at $1,000. There was no change on that. Another change, which we'll talk a little bit more in the next couple of slides, is House Bill 447. Previously, prior to tax year 2024, we did not have a de minimis, which meant that it didn't matter if you were in the state of Montana for 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, you had to report any wages or withholding to the state of Montana for the time that you worked within our state. Now the rule is 30 days, and it's 30 calendar days. So as a business owner, you'll be responsible for tracking when your employees are in our state working if you're an out-of-state business. There are some exemptions to that, and we'll go over that here in a little bit. The other change is Senate Bill 399. The change for us as well was our change to our MW-4. Previously on our MW-4, you were allowed to claim allowances as well as exemptions. the allowance piece has now gone away, and we will start with the federal filing status. We will be talking about that in depth here on the next couple of slides. I've changed things up a little bit this year, and I've actually given a lot of screenshots of what through our TAP system, as well as on our forms to help you better understand how to complete those. So who's responsible for having a withholding account within the state of Montana? That's going to be any employer who has employees who earn wages within our state. Again, that will pertain as well to outside businesses who have employees who come into the state of Montana and work. Again, it's that 30 days or within a calendar year. You as an employer are responsible for tracking that. We are willing to work with you on the easiest ways to do that. So if you have questions on how or when you want to set up that withholding account, because let's say you don't know when your employees are going to actually be in our state, we're happy to work out some ideas with you on that. We're kind of tossing some things around on how to help employers with that. In situations where you are, you take a bid on a job and you're going to be in the state for more than 30 days, you obviously would want to open that withholding account immediately and start withholding and paying to the state of Montana. But if you have an employee who is just occasionally traveling to Montana, you may not want to do that right away. So we are happy to help you work through this. This is new for us as well, and we're kind of just feeling our way through it as well alongside you. Please keep in mind a day consists per law, it's anytime you're present within the state. So you could come in, at noon and you're considered here for a day. So you want to be aware of that. Some of the exclusions to this are professional athletes, professional entertainers, Montana lottery winners, construction workers, key employees who make over $500,000. These people are exempt, so they would have to start withholding from the minute they walk into the state of Montana to work. Montana residents that work in other states, the state of Montana does not want you to withhold to the state of Montana if your employees aren't here working. So if you have an employee who travels to another state to do some work for a bid or something that you're doing outside of the state of Montana, you're going to want to reach out to that state to determine what their withholding requirements are. We only want you withholding on employees that are actually working within the state of Montana. Some states that don't have an income tax, you may want to work out something with your employee where, because they are a Montana resident and they'll have a filing requirement within the state of Montana, that you want them to withhold here on behalf of your employee. So you can decide that between yourself and your employee, but generally if there is withholding requirements in a state they're working in, we ask you to withhold to that state and follow their guidelines. Types of compensation, excuse me. Top few are pretty self-explanatory: wages, salaries, fees, bonuses, that sort of thing. Payment in kind is usually, it's pretty rare, but we do see it sometimes. I use it for reference. I usually say, you have a high school student maybe who comes and works on your ranch, but instead of paying them a wage every month, you get them a pickup truck. So basically what you do at the end of the year is you take the value of that truck, and that would be considered their wages. Compensation not subject to withholding. We did have a change in tax year 2024 that due to Senate Bill 399, where tip income is now taxable to the state of Montana starting in 2024, along with unemployment payments. So you may want to do some extra withholding for those reasons, for to cover the having to claim your wages or your tips and your unemployment payments. We'll walk through the MW4 and kind of show you how to add that extra withholding on our new form if that's your choice or decision, excuse me. Registration. So we have a couple of ways that you can register within the state of Montana. One is through our TAP website, which I'll show you that link here in a little bit. That's the way we recommend that you register for a withholding account, just simply because that goes through our system a lot quicker than if you were to fill out a paper form. We do have a paper form available, however, if that's your preference. Again, you have to register for a withholding account if you have Montana wages, if you issue a W-2 that has with wages and withholding or without withholding, and if you have a 1099 with withholding. We do understand that there are some 1099s that are issued that do not have withholding, and if that is the only thing that you issue for your company, you do not need to have a withholding account in that situation. The other time that we ask that you register is if you have a change in your EIN. And we ask that you notify us as soon as possible of that change, register that new account, and we're happy to work with you on payments and W-2s and filings and that sort of thing. We run into this quite a bit with mid-year changes or a purchase of a business or that sort of thing. And so it can get a little complicated when you're switching EINs, and we're happy to walk through that with you and help you through that process. The other thing is if you need to cease your account, I just want to throw it out there. Please feel free to just let us know, send us an email. This was really prominent during COVID, of course, where people were shutting down for a small amount of time. If you're maybe even if you're seasonal and you don't need your withholding account the entire year, you can feel free to reach out to us at any time and say, I no longer have employees right now. I'm hoping to start back up in, June or July or, later on in the year. Just send us a quick email, let us know. We'll close your account down and then we can just reopen when you start paying employees again. It does happen more often than you would think. And so we're more than happy to walk through that with you and help you through that process. Quick email, just letting us know. And then it would be a quick email just to reopen it. And we would just verify none of your information changed and just get you rolling again. So that is an option. Another good reason behind that is then you don't get a bunch of letters from us during the year if you're if you're no longer operating at that time. So after you've registered, you will receive a letter in the mail. This letter is going to contain your 12-digit account ID, or excuse me, 13-digit account ID that you will need in order to set up your TAP access. If you want to use TAP, we'll walk through that. You will need this information. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I talking too fast? I apologize.
I was just going to interrupt you on that. Yeah, somebody had said to slow down.
I apologize. I love talking about it, so it just kind of
you do
really
excited.
fast. I am very excited. I apologize. I'll slow down. Once you have registered for that account, you'll want to, once you get that letter, you'll want to go out to our TAP website if you want to use TAP to submit your information and get that account set up. You're also going to receive a welcome letter, which some of you, or excuse me, a welcome email, which some of you may have already gotten from us, and that's why you're on this call, where we're reaching out and letting you know that we're having these webinars, letting you know that your account's been set up, that you'll be getting your letter in the mail with all your information. And this is just something new we started in 2023. The reason behind that is we roughly get about 300 accounts a month that get registered. And those sometimes those accounts are opened in error, and so we're trying to just reach out to you right away, say, hey, did you really mean to have this account? Are you really going to have employees starting this year? We just want to start that conversation and let you know we're here to help you with anything and that we can as far as your withholding goes. A lot of those accounts end up closed, or they end up, oh, well, I was just registering, trying to get everything all taken care of, but I'm really not going to have employees for another 6 months. So that's just conversations that we can get rolling with you, and then we can change that date on your account saying that you're not going to have employees until at a later date, so you don't have a filing requirement right away. And then that way, when you file your return, it doesn't wonder why you haven't had payments for the whole year when you only started towards the end of the year. So we just really want to get that conversation going and let you know that we're here and we're very nice, we're very friendly. We just want to help you any way we can. Please keep in mind all new accounts that you open are monthly, which means that your withholding is due on a monthly basis. And so We'll get more in detail about that, but basically, like, your January withholding is all due by February 15th and so on throughout the year. Once you go through a look back process, that will change potentially depending on your amount of withholding, and we'll go over that here in a little bit as well. Please keep in mind if you're ag or domestic, you will generally have a not required filing status. That doesn't mean you don't have to report. That just means you have the option to withhold. You're not legally required to withhold, but you can if you want to. For calculating our employees' withholding, this did change a little bit for us this year. Again, our withholding tax tables did go down for tax year 2024 due to Senate Bill 399. The calculation to determine withholding is what has changed as well. We now start with your federal filing status. There's no longer the option for allowances. Your amount of wages is always part of that and your pay frequency. But the big change for us is that federal filing status. And in the next couple of slides, we're going to go over the MW4, which will be what you use or have your employees complete in order to determine their withholding. I did also want to mention that another change due to the tax simplification from Senate Bill 399 is that our highest tax rate has dropped. It went from 6.75 down to 5.9. Okay, so here's an example of our new form MW4. We did send out some information to local chambers. We are putting this information in emails as well as it's on our website if you want to go out and get the paper form to have your staff fill out. We're going to go through this line by line and just please feel free to ask questions along the way. I do have some examples I'll go over as well just to show you the importance of filling this form out. So the top section is very self-explanatory, your name, your employee's name and address. We do ask that you use a physical address. The reason behind that is due to some of the exemptions. We have to verify where you actually physically live. We do understand, especially with the tribal exemption, that you may not have a physical address on some reservations. So you use a P.O. box in those scenarios. So we will be reaching out to you and just letting you know, can you please provide additional information like a tribal membership card, just so that we can verify that you truly are a member of the tribe that you are on the reservation that you live and work. So that's the reason behind that physical address. But again, we do understand sometimes there isn't a physical address. So again, the first question on the form is going to be the filing status. This needs to match your federal filing status. One of the changes, another change due to Senate Bill 399 is married filing separately on the same form for the state of Montana is no longer an option. So if you are married and you file separately with the IRS, you would want to file married, probably filing separately with the state as well. So that's why we have that single married filing separately, or married filing separately, married filing jointly, or qualified widower and a head of household. For question 2, married filing jointly with both spouses working. We're going to go over this here in a minute about how to complete the multiple jobs worksheet. We are recommending that if the wages between yourself and your spouse is at least $10,000 or more, you're going to want to fill out that multiple jobs worksheet. So if your spouse, you make 50,000 and your spouse makes 45,000, you're probably fine. You don't really necessarily need to fill out the multiple jobs worksheet. But if there is that significant difference, you're going to want to check box 2 and fill out the multiple jobs worksheet, which we'll go over here in a minute. And I have some examples to explain why we recommend that you do this. How to complete the form continued here. Question number 3, this is your extra withholding. So this may come into play in scenarios where people just like to have a little bit of a buffer. They just want like an extra $25 every pay period just to cover anything that they're not anticipating when they go to file their taxes. Um, the other thing that you'll put on line 3 is in the multiple jobs worksheet. When you complete it, when you're done, the value you'll put on line 3. Keep in mind this is per pay period. You may too, we're recommending that you complete this area if you have unemployment payments or you have 1099-Rs, and maybe the retirement company won't withhold to the state of Montana. You're going to want to do the multiple jobs worksheet and maybe add a little bit of extra withholding to compensate for that extra income. Question 4 is the one that keeps me up at night. Question 4 is our reduced withholding section. So this section here, this is what if you put any dollar amount on this line, we're not going to look at your filing status. We're not going to look at anything else. We're just going to withhold based on what's in line 4. So it's really important if line 4 doesn't apply to you, either put like an NA or leave it blank, because if you put a 0 on line 4, you're basically saying, I don't want withholding. I don't need withholding. Please don't withhold anything for me. As an employer, we're asking that maybe this first year, just with the change to our form, that if you do get a bunch that have a 0 on line 4, that you may want to reach out and just have a conversation with your employee. Just verify that they truly do not want withholding. We do understand there are scenarios where you may not need withholding. Maybe you know your tax liability down to the penny, and you have some credits that are going to offset, and so at the end of the year you don't need that withholding, and you want that money in your pocket every paycheck versus waiting till you file your taxes. So you may truly not want withholding, and we understand that, but we just truly are asking that you really have that conversation and make sure people understand that that's what that means. Maybe that you only need 150 a month and you're going to be golden. You don't need anything extra withheld after that. So you put $150 in here, and then that's all that's withheld for you every pay period. So it's really important that you understand what that line 4 is for. Another situation that we've run across with employers who have employees completing this form is they're putting out a dollar amount in line 3 and a dollar amount in line 4. As the employee, that's up to you to have that conversation or determine which one may supersede the other. We don't have any rule that says if they put a dollar amount in both lines that line 4 supersedes line 3. So that's really a business decision as an employer on how you want to handle those situations. Personally, I probably would have a conversation and say, okay, you need to make a choice. What are you trying to do here? Let's get this balanced out for you and filed correctly. We have also had it come up already where we have tribal exemptions, and they're not always working on that reservation that they're a member of, and so they do complete the top portion as well as the exemption portion, so that for the times that they're working outside that reservation, they're still withholding correctly. So there may be scenarios like that as well. And again, if you have any questions, or if you'd like us to come in and do a presentation for employees, we're happy to do that. I have one that's just solely for this MW4. So moving on to the multiple jobs worksheet, here's an example of what it looks like. And then we're going to go through how completing this will benefit you in the next couple examples that I have. The 2 jobs is pretty easy. If you roll into like 3 jobs or more and it gets a little more complicated, please feel free to reach out to the team. We're happy to walk you through that or help your employee walk through that. Our unit manager has tested us very thoroughly on this form, so we're all really geared up and ready to help with any questions that you guys might have. So now we're going to go through some examples of this multiple jobs worksheet on how completing it will help you. So for this situation, I took a single taxpayer who has 2 jobs. Their first job they have $70,000 in wages. Their second job is $20,000. So if you look at the table off to your right there, your higher paying job is going to be $70,000. So you're going to go to that $70,000 or line, and then you're going to find the column where it's that 20,000 to 29,999, and where the two intersect is the 1,046. So that 1,046 is the total with extra withholding you need for the year. So you would put that on line 1 of that previous sheet, of that multiple jobs worksheet. And then you would go down to line 3 because we only have 2 jobs. And you would take that 1,046 and you would divide it by the number of pay periods you have for the year. So in this situation, we did every other week. So we divided that by 26. So it ends up being like $40 and some change. We're recommending that regardless of what that change amount is, you always round up to the nearest dollar. So in this scenario, you round up to 41. So then on line 3 of that multiple jobs worksheet, or excuse me, line 4, I believe it is, you would have $41, and then that would transfer over to line 3 of the MW4 to show that you want an extra $41 per pay period withheld from your paycheck. And so what that does then is they're going to withhold based on your federal filing status, and then they're going to add an extra $41. And in my next example, I'm going to show you what happens if you don't fill out that multiple jobs worksheet, so you kind of get an idea of how that balances out. So in this next example, I'm going to show you, like I said, just by using the withholding tax tables, what you would withhold. So if you look at that little gray box there off to the left, your $70,000 biweekly is $2,693. The biweekly on the $20,000 is $770. And you can find those dollar amounts by going over to the table off to the right there, that green table. If you were to take, oh, excuse me, that's wrong. I apologize, I misspoke. That's determined by dividing that $70,000 by the number of pay periods. I jumped ahead on myself, I apologize. So then if you were to go and add those two together, you get a total of the $3,463 for the $90,000 in total wages. So if you look at the table up above, the first 562, $0 to $562 is not taxed. And then if you take that 562 and the 1350 and you subtract the two, the difference is $788. So that next $788 is taxed at $37. So then you take those two and you subtract that from the 340 or 3463, which gives you that $2,113. So that remaining $2,113 is taxed at 5.9% for a total of 125. So your total every 2 weeks is $162 in tax on your wages.
Hey, Jen.
Yes.
Can you hold tight for a second? We're backing up in the question and answers. We have a lot of
Oh,
people
I'm sorry.
No. That's perfect. It's just that some of the questions are getting more elaborate than just like yeah, that's true, or no, that's not.
Oh.
And so and so we are working on that, and we love the questions. So keep those coming, obviously, but we just don't want to lose the context of some of the questions that are asked in the question and answer, and compared to what the slides are on the screen.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there anything I can answer out loud, or?
Maybe Donna could feed you that, because she's actually writing out the answer, so I don't know which one she's working on. Donna, you can unmute and ask the questions.
Well, let's start. I think we have 9 questions out there, and on my screen, Jason, it goes with the latest, so not the first one. So I'm not sure. So Jen, if you could
scroll up.
Oh, I see. So the Department of Political Practice requires an FEIN. Is state DOR account required as well without employees? Yeah, so if I'm understanding your question correctly, Ron, you would need an EIN to have a withholding account. You are correct there. So anytime you have employees, you would want to register with us using that EIN. I'm hoping that answered your question. And then Brandy, I think is how you say that name. She stated that the filing status should match the federal. What if it doesn't? I have one employee who files married filing joint and married filing separate on Montana. Correct me if I'm wrong, Donna, but that's fine. I believe, or does that change now with us going with the federal?
So for beginning in when you file your return in 25, married filing separate on same form goes away, if that's answering your question. And so we will follow the federal status. If they do married filing joint on federal, we'll do married filing joint on Montana beginning for filing season 2025.
Okay. Is this taxable income or gross income? I'm not sure what that question. Are you asking that question probably based on my example? If you're talking, if that taxable income versus gross income has to do with my example, that has to do. I'm looking at just wages. I'm not taking into consideration anything outside of wages. It's just wages that I'm dealing with. So I'm hoping that's what that one was for. Jointly, that makes more than 10,000 a year. Should complete the. Yeah, so you would definitely want to complete the multiple jobs worksheet if you make more than $10,000 difference in your between you and your spouse. And I have an example. That's my next example to show you as to why that's important. Say someone there online for employees have to decide how to handle. Yeah, so if anybody enters Zero Online 4, I recommend as an employer that you just make sure that they truly don't want withholding. Just maybe help them understand that that's what that means, because we just have had a lot of questions on Line 4. And again, some people may not want withholding, and that's their decision, but we just want to clarify, because you have to keep in mind, withholding is not really a choice, it's the law. We're required to withhold on wages for the state of Montana. And so you really want to have those conversations with them. On the side, just they qualify to fill out multiple jobs with this form. For anybody who has their own business, I would recommend you reach out to us directly, because that can get a little bit trickier on how to fill out that multiple jobs worksheet in that scenario. And it's just easier to go, to answer those questions one-on-one than because I can't hit every single scenario there. But what lines do you complete for self-employed spouses? For self-employment, you would want to probably look at your tax situation, if your spouse is self-employed, and see, how your tax situation lays out. So in those situations, we're recommending that you reach out to your accountant or work through it with your accountant, just so that they can help you make the best determination on how to do that withholding. How to withhold, not necessarily how the employee is going to file their return, correct? Yes, that is correct. About the form only tells the employer how to withhold, not necessarily how the employee is going to file their return. That is true. We're just basically having you complete the form based on your federal filing status. So if you are going to file married filing jointly with the feds, you would want to use that as your filing status for the MW4 as well. Yes, Shay, box 2 is only married filing jointly if you're going to have if your income is less than that $10,000 and you're not going to complete that multiple jobs worksheet. If you are going to complete the multiple jobs worksheet, then you would want to select 1B, I believe it is, or 1A if you're married filing separately. Yes, I am, Brittany. That's my next example. So are we all caught up?
You are looking good. You're back on board.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So again, on this first example, this is for a single taxpayer who has multiple jobs. So you will end up with having tax of $162. Sorry, I'm trying to get my brain back on track here. And so every biweekly you have $160 tax due. So, or 162, excuse me. So then if you look at the tax tables based on that 263 for $70,000, if you go to that bottom column or bottom line and the green table off to the right, and you're single, you're only withholding $117 per pay period. So then if you were to take the $20,000, which is that $770 every 2 weeks, and that's going to be your top row in that same table, you're only withholding $12. So every 2 weeks, you're withholding $129, but you're being taxed $162. But because you filled out that multiple jobs worksheet, you now have an additional $41 that's going to help cover that difference. So that's the reason behind filling out that multiple jobs worksheet. Oh, I moved my mouse. So in the multiple jobs worksheet in a married situation, so married filing jointly, married filing jointly with a significant difference in pay. So your spouse makes $100,000 and let's say you make $60,000. So if you look at that table, the $100,000 is that very bottom row, and then the column is going to be the $60,000 on the far right there. You need to withhold an extra $212. So in this scenario, we divided that $212 by 52. We figured you were weekly paid weekly. So that's an extra $43 a pay period that you need to withhold to make up that $2,212. So then your employer would withhold this above your filing status. Yeah, excuse me, I said that wrong. So that would be the extra withholding that you would need between the two spouses. So in my next example, I'm going to show you what happens if you don't withhold that extra $2,212. So in this example, the first spouse for the $100,000 is going to be, excuse me, it's every 2 weeks is every week is $1,924. On the $60,000 wage, every week they make $1,154. So if you add the two of those together, you get $3,078. So if you look at the table up above, that first 562 is not taxed. The next 788 is taxed at $37, and the remaining 1,728 is taxed at 102. So every week you're taxed $139. So then if you go off to the table, off to your right there, the green table, and you find that 1924, which is roughly the one down there at the bottom, and you're married filing jointly, so you're withholding 76. And then for the $60,000, that 1,154 is roughly right there on that first box there, the $1,100 to $1,200, you're withholding 31. So you're taxed at 139, but you're only withholding 107 between the two of you. So that's why we recommend that multiple jobs worksheet, because now you're withholding an extra $43 above the 107, which is going to help cover that tax liability. So the next section we're going to talk about is the exemptions. There are no changes to our exemptions. We still have the same 4 exemptions, 2 of them referring to military situations, 1 for North Dakota because we have a reciprocity agreement with North Dakota, and then the other one is the tribal exemption. Again, in order to qualify for the tribal exemption, you need to be an enrolled member of the tribe, of the reservation that you live and work on. We did do a change this year. We're no longer going to mail a denial letter to both the employer and the employee. The denial letter will only go out to the employer. Exemptions are something you have to request annually. You can't just fill it out for this year and be good for the entire time that they're an employee. This is a form that we require annually. And then again, it's completed via TAP. And I'll walk you through how to do that here in a minute. And so you'll want to, and it's a logged in process in TAP, so you do have to have a TAP account to submit these. We do not accept paper. If you send us paper, we will reach out to you and ask you to complete it on TAP, and we can walk you through that. The bottom section of the form is just the signature of the employee and then the employer's information. So now we're going to roll into our annual MW3 reconciliation. This form is due every year on the 31st. This is what you submit along with your W-2s with or without withholding, and any 1099s with withholding. Again, if you don't have withholding on your 1099s, you do not have to have a withholding account in that situation. We do still ask that you submit that information just because we do comparison with our, and when people file their returns. So it's always good to have your version and their version to make sure to help combat fraud. So we do ask that you still submit them, but you don't have to have a withholding account to do so. And again, these forms are due by the 31st. Donna, you're unmuted. I don't know if you meant to be, but I think I just heard you. So the Form MW3, this is how it looks. I filled one out as an example there just to show you what it should look like completed. The reason behind that is we do have issues every year where the bottom section there, which we call the recon schedule, isn't completed correctly. We are starting to reject those and working with you closer to help you understand how to complete those correctly so they get through our system faster. Every year we roughly have about 6,000 of these that we have to fix. And so the better that they come into us and the cleaner they come into us, the faster they're going to get through and on your account and filed. The filing tab not required, I did mention, or filing type, excuse me, I mentioned this earlier. This usually pertains to any ag or domestic accounts. Domestic accounts are generally individuals who come in like a nanny or a situation like that where they come in and maybe do, babysit or whatever for you. You're not necessarily required to withhold on those employees, but you are required to report. So you would just file a MW3 showing wages, no withholding, along with those W-2s showing the same. If you have any questions on that or need some further information, please let us know and we can help you out through that. If you do choose, to withhold, because you can, if you want to work something out with your employee and they ask you to withhold, you sure can. Your information, you're considered an annual filer, so your information will all be due by the 31st and your withholding payments would be due at that time as well. This is our look back period. This is what was mentioned a little bit earlier. You have to have been a taxpayer with us for at least 2 years, I think it is, before you will qualify for a look back period. The reason behind that is it looks at July 1st of the previous year to June 30th of the current year. And what it's looking at is the system is looking at how much withholding you're paying to the state of Montana during the year. And so for that year, they may change your filing status based on that information. Anyone who is an annual filer, they withhold generally $0 to $1,199, and this is total withholding for all your employees. Monthly is $1,200 to $11,999, and accelerated is $12,000 or greater. If you are an annual filer, your withholding is due at the end of the year. If you're monthly, it's due by the 15th of the following month, which, January's withholding is due February 15th and so on throughout the year. If you're accelerated, we follow the guidelines of the IRS. So when you're paying them, you can pay us. You can always pay more often than what you're required. Just keep in mind that the withholding is due on a specific date for the previous month. But again, there's no charge if you want to pay every day. Some people do. So the look back letters do go out on the 1st, just so that you're aware of. Well, they go out about 2 weeks. They go out mid-October, so you get them by the 1st. And keep in mind when you do receive that letter that it's for the following year. It's not for your current tax year. Again, this is what I just went over with the payment schedules. Annual is once a year, or more often if you choose. Monthly is by the 15th, and accelerated, we follow the federal. We're now going to get into TAP and into e-services. We do have an e-services department here with the state of Montana. They help anybody who does electronic filing, make sure that payroll providers are up to date with all the filing requirements, as well as manage our TAP system. So I'm not going to go in too much detail on e-services just because that's not my job. It's not my wheelhouse, and I don't want to give out misinformation, but they are a great unit to work with. And if you are having issues when it comes to filing electronically, please reach out.
Hey, Jen, let's look at, we have 3 last questions on MW4s and MW3s and such. And so before we go into TAP, let's see if we can clean those up and get everybody on the same page.
Okay.
And for the recording, you might want to have to read the question out loud so it saves it in the recording.
Okay. MW3 example doesn't have the date paid filled in. We don't have to fill that column in. You don't necessarily have to do the date paid because the system will look at the date that the payment was filed, and it makes a comparison based on that date. Column A is required, however, which is why I filled that column out. But no, you can fill out, and it, like my example I'll show you when you file through TAP, will fill out column B for you based on your payments. On the MW3, are we supposed to put the end of the month on all of those, or does it depend on whether or not you are an accelerated? So if you're accelerated, you would put in the same dates that you're making your payments. You could even do that as a monthly filer. We've actually updated that to where it does not have to be the end of the month. In column A, it can be whenever you make your payments, because the system is just comparing, yes, you said you had this withholding for March and you did make this payment for March, so your things offset, and then that will take care of any P&I there. So I think I answered your question. All right.
Yeah, you're up and going. So sometimes if I see a good spot where there's a good chapter change, or whatever, I like to catch the questions up, because oftentimes people ask questions that are contextually meaningful on whatever the subject matter is, and if we wait too long, then it loses context.
Yeah.
So that's
nope. I agree. Thank you.
Hey.
All right. So here's an example of what our TAP website looks like. A couple of things that we'll point out throughout here is how to register, but and how to file and make payments. One of the things that I did want to mention, we do have a withholding calculator. It's very simplistic. It just basically will take in what your filing status is, what your wages are, and then how often you're paid, and it will give you what your withholding should be, which matches up to our withholding table, which I showed you previously. To get to that, it's under your individuals and under more, and then you'll see it there. The other thing I wanted to point out is unclaimed property. We're doing a very big push on unclaimed property. We have millions of dollars in unclaimed property, and so just take a minute, go out there, throw your information out there, see if you have anything. I found $400. Some people have found thousands of dollars. It's, quick check. Maybe you got something out there, maybe you don't. Check for, maybe you have a deceased parent, or maybe you have a deceased spouse. Check on their information as well. You never know what's out there that maybe you just didn't know about. Random paychecks, old accounts. Maybe there was an old safety deposit box, so that stuff's out there. So just take a minute, go out there, fill it out, see if you have anything hanging out, because that's your stuff. We don't want to keep that. And so, we just really want to get that back to you if that's out there. So to register for an account, that link is right there under the business section. You would just click on that, and then it's going to walk you through some questions. It's going to ask you about your EIN. It's going to ask you for your business information, contact information, that sort of thing. Contact information is very, very important. Please make sure that you list anybody and everybody that we can talk to. You would be surprised how many people call and we can't give them information because they are not listed. But they are your new accountant, or they're your, a new employee that you have doing stuff on your behalf. So just make sure if you have any changes throughout your business structure that you let us know who those contacts are. So that we can make sure to keep your information up to date, and then we don't have to have that hard conversation and say, no, I can't tell you anything, you're not listed here, and that sort of stuff. Once you get your letter, this box up here in the corner is how you're going to set up your access. So you'll click on that link. It'll walk you through some stuff. It will need your 13-digit account ID as well as some other information. So if you have registered and you did it through TAP and it should be registered by now, but you don't want to wait 2 weeks for the letter, give us a call. We're happy to give that information over the phone as long as you're a contact. And then you can get through this registration process a little bit quicker to get TAP up and running. This is just some more information on what you need to get that account up and open. Third-party access is a huge benefit through TAP that we offer. It's really handy if you are a bookkeeper or an accountant and you have multiple businesses. We now have the ability to put them all under one sign-on. And then you can just go through and file and pay and do all the necessary requirements that way without having to go into every client's account and file and pay. So it is pretty handy. You do have to get permission, obviously, from your client. So there is a process to go through for that. If you have more questions, reach out to eServices. They have some really good step-by-step instructions on how to do that process. You have 3 different types of access once you're in TAP. Make sure that you are giving your employees the correct access that they need to do the job that you need them to do. If you do have or even a third-party person that's doing their filing for you. Because if you give them limited access, they can't really do a whole lot. So you would just want to make sure that you are following the right access there to be able to allow whoever to file your returns and make your payments on your behalf. Or yourself if you're the one doing it. So again, we're going to walk through how to complete an MW4 on TAP. These next few slides will probably go fairly quickly just because they're screenshots of what TAP looks like, just so that I can help you with that process. But always ask questions along the way if you have them. And again, the only MW4s that need to be filed on here now are ones where you're requesting an exemption. We do recommend that all employees complete the new MW4. We can't force that. We definitely encourage the new employees, but your current employees, I would encourage that as well, just because of the change in our tax tables and how that withholding is determined. If you do have an employee who just absolutely refuses to complete the form, we are recommending that you withhold on a single status until they do. And I believe that is in our instructions. For anybody else who does complete the form, please keep a copy on file. We do audit that periodically. And so it's just easier, if we come in to do an audit on your MW4s, that they're just already done and you don't have to go and get them all filled out before we get there. So this is where you would go. So you have your login, you're all set up on there. You can see I have a withholding account there. If you go and you have to be in the withholding account under this more options, and then you would click on File MW4. This first section is just going to verify your employer information. And then here is where you're going to go in and complete that MW4. So then once you hit next, it brings up this screen and you would hit add MW4. You're going to have to hit that button, and I'll show you here on this next couple of slides. It'll be at the bottom. If you have multiples, you can do them in a multiple file. So then this is where you would fill it out for your employee, their information, and then select which exemption, and you have to put in that year there as well. Because like we mentioned, this is an annual thing that you need to complete every year if you have an employee that is requesting one of these exemptions. Now here at the bottom, if you were going to add another one, you would click Add MW4. Otherwise, you would click Submit. And once you do that, it wants your email, or excuse me, your password to submit the file. But then you get this confirmation. Anything that you do in TAP, whether it's file a return, make a payment, file the MW4, you are going to get a confirmation. I recommend that you write that down or print it out or do something, but keep that confirmation number, because if you ever have any issues with anything that you've submitted via TAP, that's how we can do the research, is through that confirmation number there. You can make payments via TAP, e-payments, credit card payments. I do want to let you know there is a small processing fee if you do credit or debit card payments. So here's how you would go in and make a payment. So you would be in your withholding account. You would click on make a payment. The next screen that comes up is this one that gives you the option of bill payment or withholding payment. It is important that you mark it as a withholding payment. If you mark it as a bill payment, it comes into us as a credit because it makes it's looking for that payment. And so then we have to go in and we review your account and we have to make sure that you truly, that it's truly a withholding payment, not a bill payment. So it just can cause a lot more work on our end. So we were really stressing how important it is if you make your payments via tap, unless it is a true bill and you have a bill in your hand that you're paying, please select it as a withholding payment. Then once you do that, it brings you into, you have to select your year, of course. We don't do, even if you're a monthly filer, it's not going to give you every month. It's the entire year is looked at as a whole year. It's not looked at on a monthly basis. So you would always select the 12/31 for this year, it would be 2024. And then once you do that, it brings up this payment method screen. And then once you select your payment method, this is the one where I did the regular payment, not a credit card payment. So then you fill in all your banking information. This question down here will ask you if you want to save this information. The reason you may want to save that is because then you just come in every month and add your dollar amount versus having to put your bank information in every month. Then you fill out your dollar amount, you hit submit, and it's going to go through that thing where it's going to say, hey, I need your password. It's going to give you a password, and then it's going to give you a confirmation. And then what I wanted to show you is as you do your payments, you're going to see this credit. There's going to constantly be a credit throughout the year. How our system works is it builds that credit, and then basically at the end of the year when it files your return, it says, okay, you made all these payments that total $2,500. Now you're filing a return. All your payments are going to match up, and then it's just going to balance out for you. So this is a good way to track to make sure that you are making your payments, and your balance is growing and that sort of thing. You'll also see this in red if you have a balance due somewhere. So this is now how you file a return on tap. So then basically you would go to your return, you would select the period you're filing for. It's going to bring up this first screen down there below, which is going to verify your address information. Nothing's changed there. If it did change, then you can change it at that time. You hit next, and then it's going to bring up, oh, this is the address stuff. I'm sorry. I think I put it on here twice. And then once you do that, what I'm showing you here on this screen is the one off to the left is what your return is going to look like when you first get in there. Because I made all these payments through TAP, column A is blank, so you would have to fill out column A accordingly. And then B, C, and D is all filling out based on what you filed, the payments that you made. So all your payments, if you pay through TAP, please keep in mind these are only TAP payments. They're going to go ahead and populate on that return for you, and you don't have to fill it out. Now, towards the end of the year, sometimes you have that random last payment that may be not on here yet because it's set to be paid, but it hasn't been paid yet, but you're filing your return. You may have to add that last payment depending on that situation. Not always, but it could happen. So I just want you to be aware. But then you would just fill out that top portion where you're talking about how many W-2s you have, whether they were filed paper or electronic, your total wages, your withholding column should be completed for you based on your recon schedule. You enter your dates and you hit submit, and then it comes directly to us from there. And then it will prompt you. It will say, hey, you may have W-2s to file. So I wanted to show you how to file a manual W-2. I did not do how to do an upload of a file, reach out to eServices on that one, but I did want to show you if you only have like one or two and you just want to manually do it. So you would just select that manual W-2. It's going to ask you for your year. And then you're going to fill out your information. Your employer information will probably default for you because you're on your own withholding account, but you just want to verify it's correct. And then you're going to come into this screen and it's going to ask you, what are you filing? So you're going to say, yes, I want to file a W-2. Then it's going to bring up that screen down below there where it says single entry. And then you're going to add a W-2. And then it's just going to bring up what a W-2 looks like. And you basically just complete the form based on your information for that employee. So this here is like your employer information and then the box 1 through 13. The next screenshot I did is like the employee's information. Down below where it says amounts for box 11 through 12 or 11, 12, and 14, there's a whole list there. I didn't print all those or I didn't show all those, but those basically tie back to, you know, like retirement and that sort of stuff. So if you have any questions on it, fill that bottom section out, let us know. We're happy to walk you through that. Then you get all done, you hit submit, and it sends the file directly to us again. There is a functionality within TAP where you have the ability now to go in. It's under more options, I believe, where you can see all your submissions, plus you can see all your returns. So that's kind of handy. We've now built a way to where you can actually export those payment files so you can do some balancing outside of TAP if need be. So this is what I was just talking about, where you can create that file. You would just come in here, you would select the accounts, the periods you want, and then it's going to give you a whole list of payments there of all the payments that you've made it. It'll let you know that it's pending or it's posted because maybe your return came in, so now it's all posted. And then you can, that little export button there in the corner, you can select that and it will export it out for you, and you can do some reconciling outside of it if need be, outside of TAP. File formats for TAP is TXT format. You have to, your W-2s and 1099s need to be in a TXT format if you're submitting a file, and the MW3 needs to be in a zip format. We do run into this quite a bit where you're trying to download that information from one of your payroll providers and it's not in the correct format. So you just need to really make sure you're using that correct format to get it to come out of TAP. If you do have some issues with that, again, please reach out to eServices. They'll be able to help you through that. The last thing here, that I'm going to talk about is our approved vendors process. Every year, all approved vendors have to go through what we call a letter of intent process. This process is where they go through and they send us test files and we make sure everything's coming in as it needs to for our system. And so I wanted to show you how you can see who those approved vendors are. So if you go out to our website, our MT revenue website, you would go to up there in the corner or up there on top where it says online services. You would select that and it's going to bring up this approved software vendors. You click that box, which then brings up these options. And so if you select the one where it says approved wage, withholding, and payroll tax software, you will get a screen that looks similar to this. This is just part of the screen. There's actually more vendors than this, but I just wanted to give you an example of what it looks like. And so then you can see if your payroll provider is listed here as a vendor and has been approved. The reason why I bring this up is because if they haven't gone through the process and you're trying to file, your return may reject the minute you hit submit. So I just want you to be aware that if that happens, you may want to come back out here and make sure that your vendor is approved by us. And if they aren't, you may want to send us paper until they do become approved, because I don't want you to be late and assess late file penalties because your vendor hadn't been approved yet. So just an FYI there, just a little plug to put out there to help you avoid maybe some late file penalties if something's going on with the vendor. And that's updated periodically throughout the year. So then the last thing I wanted to touch on before I go, I apologize, I went over a little bit here, but Montana Tax News you can use is a newsletter that the state of Montana puts out on what kind of activity we have going on. I recommend that you go out and register for this newsletter. You can do that by going to our website, and then down at the very bottom, you scroll to the very bottom, there is a subscribe button. It'll ask for your email, and then it will give you options of what you want to hear about. I recommend that you do this just because with this legislation that had passed some bills, and so with Senate Bill 399, which is changes to our income tax, even you as an individual may want to know what's going on with that. Or maybe you want to know what's going on with withholding or cannabis or SBC or even the unclaimed property stuff. It just will send you information on anything new that's changed or that we're working on, or a new bill or a law or something like that that may have gotten passed. It just kind of keeps you up to date on what we're doing. I understand a lot of people don't want a bunch of junk email, but really we don't send out newsletters unless we have something to tell you. So it's not like you're just gonna get random junk coming into your email. But I do recommend it. It is a good way to keep up on what we have going on. And with that, this last screen is just some contact information for us. The website, chat portal, that link there is how you can get directly to the approved software, how to file your electronic MW3 and W2s, and then some contact information. The call center. If you do have specific withholding questions, though, I do recommend that you use that 6937 number, just because that's a direct, loop line number to the withholding unit. Whereas if you go through the 6900, you go through the call center. Not that that's bad. I just want you to understand sometimes they get extremely busy because they're answering questions for the entire department. And so you may get on hold for a minute or two. So if you just have a really quick, easy, you just want, directly to withholding, you would want to reach out through that 6937 or that email. We get back to you within 24 hours. Usually during filing season, it's usually pushed back to 48 hours just because we're so busy handling all those accounts and returns and whatnot. So, but please, and then there's the DORE services contact as well. I don't believe they have a loop line yet, but they're working on that. With that, I know I went over and I apologize, but if there's any questions I can answer really quick, or you have our contact information, feel free to reach out at any time. Again, I work with a great group of people, and they'll spend as much time as needed on the phone with you. We walk people through how to get returns and stuff filed all the time through TAPS. So please feel free to reach out. We're happy to answer your questions. And thank you for participating today. I really appreciate that.
Again, we do have a couple questions in there, and now that your presentation is done, I suppose you could probably field those. Okay. Donna's been doing a great job at keeping up on that. So,
okay. I am a school and use Tyler Technologies, have for years. I'm not seeing them in the approved payroll vendors though. Okay. I would definitely reach out. You said they've been following you for years though. And it's hard to say because I don't know if you went on the website and looked, because if you went on the website and looked and they're not there, then I would definitely reach out to our e-services department and see, and just make sure that your stuff's coming in. But if you haven't had any issues with them in the past, they're probably okay, or they file paper. Because really the only ones that have to go through that process file paper.
And I think they also
file electronically.
I think they answered also below that said, I have successfully submitted electronically though. I think those two are married together.
Oh, okay. So you might be okay then. Because if you've filed electronically and haven't had any issues, then you're probably good. No, you don't have to put prior year. Oh, I'm sorry. I should read the question out loud. How long has it been required to file those who are exempt from state tax on TAP? Do I need to put prior years into TAP if I have not done it before? No, you don't have to go back and file, because really it's a current year. We can't go back because you're really filing that information for your current tax year. So no, just keep going forward. Just make sure you're filing those via TAP. I think it's been that way now for, I want to say 4 years maybe, that we haven't been accepting in the paper any longer. So Rebecca, could this be why Tyler Tech was not prepared for the new MW4? That's very possible, because we did submit what we have a website, SES. It's a link or something with our vendors where they go and pull all our information. And so, yeah, that may be why they don't know. Like I said, we have been pushing this out, but we don't do anything like in the news, and we don't do, so it's all been like, it was out on social media, it's been out on our website, it's been out in newsletters, the tax news you can use, but yeah, if they're not a part of that PO or LOI process, the letter of intent process, that might be why they don't know. You can sure have them reach out, and we can get them all on board and get them the information.
That's it. That's all the questions.
All right. Thank you again, everybody. I really appreciate you getting on today.
So Donna has said, has announced that if you want us to build a Zoom meeting for your place of business or to visit with your employees, please contact either Donna or Jen, and they will work with you and figure out how that goes down. But we, this isn't just this one presentation. We can also do, more catered service to your business as well. Obviously using this technology, it can be pretty slick. But just to let you know, once again, by the time I get the Zoom files from Zoom, this presentation will probably be up and running and to rewatch or whatever by probably tomorrow, I hope. Kind of at the service and at the mercy of the Zoom client. So other than that, we're ready to go. So thank you everybody for coming out. Thank you so much for watching this webinar. This will be on our website that has the other webinars. Maybe you missed them. Maybe you want to brush up. You can watch them there again and see what else is coming your way. Jennifer, thank you so much for this presentation. Donna, thank you for the back end and helping us out with all those questions. It's been awesome. So we'll see you guys later. I will stop the recording and we'll see you next time. Everybody have a nice day.
Thank you.